The headlines were explosive. The rumors spread across social media like wildfire. According to some reports, Prince William had supposedly inherited a secret estate linked to Princess Diana and permanently shut Camilla's family out of it forever. It's the kind of royal story that seems tailor-made for the internet. Hidden fortunes, family rivalries, secret clauses, a future king protecting his mother's legacy, and a dramatic defeat for one side of Britain's most famous blended family. But how much of this story is actually true? And what does it reveal about the real power struggles, emotions, and legacies still shaping the royal family nearly 3 decades after Princess Diana's death? Because when we look beyond the sensational headlines, we uncover a story that is far more fascinating than the rumors themselves. A story about inheritance, loyalty, memory, and a legacy that continues to influence the British monarchy long after Diana's passing. Today, we're separating fact from fiction and exploring what Prince William truly inherited from his mother, why Diana's legacy remains one of the most powerful forces inside the monarchy, and why discussions involving Camilla's family continue to generate such intense public interest. The current speculation began when various online reports and commentary channels claimed that Prince William had recently gained control over previously hidden assets connected to Princess Diana. Some versions of the story went even further, suggesting that legal mechanisms had effectively ensured Camilla's children and relatives would never have access to those assets. The narrative immediately attracted attention because it seemed to fit a storyline that has existed for years. For many people around the world, Diana remains the people's princess. Her popularity never truly faded. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla's path to acceptance was far more complicated. As a result, any story that appears to place Diana's legacy in direct opposition to Camilla's family often generates enormous public engagement. But when investigators and royal historians examine the available evidence, a much different picture emerges. The reality begins with Princess Diana's estate. When Diana died in August 1997 following the tragic Paris car crash, she left behind a substantial estate estimated at roughly $21 million before taxes and expenses. After obligations were settled, the remaining wealth was placed into arrangements designed to benefit her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. Diana's will ultimately ensured that her children would become the primary beneficiaries of her fortune. The inheritance was structured through trusts and legal protections, with access delayed until adulthood. Over time, investment growth significantly increased the value received by both princes. At the heart of Diana's planning was a simple objective: protect William and Harry. She knew her sons would face extraordinary pressures. She understood the scrutiny that came with royal life, and according to numerous accounts, she wanted to ensure they would eventually have financial independence and security. Years later, both William and Harry received their respective shares. William gained access to his inheritance when he reached the designated age established by the trustees. Harry later received his own share under the same arrangements. Reports over the years have consistently indicated that the value of the inheritance had grown considerably since Diana's death due to investment, performance. This is where the first major problem appears. With the viral narrative, there is no verified evidence that a newly discovered secret estate has suddenly transferred to William in a way that changes the established inheritance picture. Nor is there evidence that Camilla's family was ever positioned to inherit assets from Diana's estate in the first place. The two family lines are legally and historically separate. Camilla's children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, are not Diana's descendants. They have never been recognized as beneficiaries of Diana's estate. There is no public record showing they possessed inheritance rights to Diana's assets that William could somehow revoke. Yet the rumor persists. Why? The answer lies in a much deeper story. To understand it, we need to go back to one of the most emotionally charged chapters in modern royal history: the marriage of Charles and Diana. When Diana Spencer married the then Prince Charles in 1981, millions watched what appeared to be a fairy tale wedding. But behind the scenes, the marriage struggled. Over time, revelations about infidelity, incompatibility, and emotional strain transformed the relationship into one of the most scrutinized marital breakdowns in history. At the center of that story was Camilla Parker Bowles, years before Charles eventually married Camilla. Many members of the public viewed her as the third person in Charles and Diana's troubled marriage. That perception shaped public attitudes for decades. Even after Diana's death, comparisons between Diana and Camilla never truly disappeared. In many ways, the two women became symbols of competing eras within the monarchy. Diana represented modern celebrity, emotional openness, and humanitarian activism. Camilla represented continuity, resilience, and Charles's long-standing personal relationship. As William grew older, he found himself carrying not only his royal responsibilities but also the immense emotional weight of Diana's legacy, and that legacy extends far beyond money. One of the most important aspects of Diana's inheritance involved personal possessions, jewelry, letters, clothing, memorabilia, historical artifacts, items that carried emotional value far beyond their financial worth. Among the most famous examples was Diana's sapphire engagement ring, which eventually became the ring Prince William used when proposing to Catherine. The gesture symbolized something much larger than inheritance. It represented continuity between Diana's memory and the future of the monarchy. Over the years, William has increasingly become the principal guardian of his mother's public legacy. Whether through charitable initiatives, public appearances, or the preservation of historical items associated with Diana, he occupies a unique position within the royal family, and that role has only grown stronger as he moves closer to eventually becoming king. This brings us to another crucial detail often overlooked by sensational reports. There is a major difference between inheriting wealth and inheriting legacy. Money can be divided. Legacy cannot. In practical terms, William and Harry inherited financial assets from their mother, but William, as heir to the throne, has increasingly become the central figure associated with preserving Diana's place within royal history. That distinction matters because it helps explain why stories about Diana's possessions, estates, and personal effects continue to attract such intense attention. For many supporters of Diana, protecting her legacy feels deeply personal. Any suggestion that her memory could somehow be diluted, shared, or overshadowed often sparks emotional reactions. The relationship between William and Harry has added another layer to these discussions. In recent years, public tensions between the brothers have generated global headlines, interviews, documentaries, memoirs, public statements. Each development has fueled speculation about the future stewardship of Diana's legacy. Who carries it forward? Who defines it? Who controls the narrative surrounding one of the most beloved figures in modern royal history? These questions remain emotionally charged, and because William now occupies an increasingly senior position within the monarchy, many observers naturally associate him with the long-term preservation of Diana's memory. Meanwhile, Camilla's position within the institution has evolved dramatically. What once seemed impossible eventually became reality. She became Queen Camilla. After years of gradual public rehabilitation, she assumed one of the most prominent roles in the monarchy. Yet despite that transformation, public perceptions remain divided. For some, Camilla has earned respect through years of service and dedication. For others, memories of the Charles-Diana-Camilla triangle remain difficult to separate from present-day events. This lingering divide helps explain why rumors involving Diana and Camilla continue to spread so rapidly. The emotional foundations already exist. People are primed to believe dramatic conflict because the historical conflict was real. However, reality tends to be far more complicated than internet headlines suggest. There is another important misconception that frequently appears in discussions about Diana's estate. Many people assume that Diana's childhood, home, and final resting place are part of William's inheritance. In fact, that isn't the case. Althorpe Estate, the historic Spencer family property where Diana grew up and where she is buried on a secluded island, follows a separate inheritance tradition within the Spencer family. Reports indicate that the estate is expected to pass through the Spencer family line rather than to William or Harry. This fact alone demonstrates how easily misunderstandings can develop around royal inheritance stories. Different estates, different legal structures, different families, different beneficiaries. Yet online discussions often merge them into a single narrative. Result is confusion that fuels speculation. Media reactions to the latest rumors have reflected this divide. Traditional royal correspondence have generally focused on documented facts surrounding Diana's will, inheritance arrangements, and historical estate records. Meanwhile, social media creators and tabloid-style commentators have often amplified more dramatic interpretations. This difference highlights a broader challenge in the digital age. Royal stories are no longer shaped exclusively by newspapers and television networks. Today, millions of viewers encounter royal news through short videos, viral posts, and algorithm-driven recommendations. The more dramatic the claim, the faster it spreads. Headlines suggesting routine estate administration rarely goes viral. A headline suggesting secret inheritances and permanent family exclusions almost certainly will. Yet despite the sensational framing, the enduring fascination reveals something important. People still care deeply about Diana. Nearly 30 years after her death, she remains one of the most influential figures in royal history. New generations continue discovering her story. Documentaries continue attracting viewers. Books continue selling. Images of Diana continue circulating across social media platforms. Few members of the royal family have maintained such cultural relevance for such a long period, and perhaps that is the real story hidden beneath all the speculation. Not whether William inherited a secret estate, not whether Camilla's family was excluded, but why Diana's legacy continues to command global attention. Because inheritance is about more than assets. It's about memory, influence, identity, and the stories future generations choose to preserve. Verified picture. No credible public evidence currently supports claims that William has recently inherited a newly revealed secret estate that permanently excludes Camilla's family from participation. What is well documented is that Diana's sons inherited from her estate under established legal arrangements, and that William continues to play an increasingly prominent role in preserving her legacy within the royal family. Looking ahead, interest in Diana's legacy is unlikely to fade. If anything, it may grow stronger. William's future as king will inevitably place renewed focus on the values, symbolism, and public image associated with his mother. Every major milestone in his journey toward the throne will likely revive discussions about Diana's influence, how much of her approach to public service lives on in William, how much of her connection with ordinary people shaped his worldview. And how will future generations remember the woman who transformed the monarchy in ways that are still being felt today? Those questions remain unanswered. But one thing is certain. Long after legal documents are filed, inheritances are distributed and headlines disappear, Princess Diana's true estate continues to endure. Not in bank accounts, not in trust funds, not in secret clauses, but in the extraordinary impact she left on millions of people around the world. That legacy remains priceless. And in many ways, it may be the most powerful inheritance of all.